Passion and Professionalism, the new series of chapters in TAV CHINUCH, the podcast of the MOFET Institute, which will accompany the 8th Conference on Teachers' Education.
So, hello, Helma. Thank you for coming. We are happy to have you with us. Could you please tell us about yourself a little bit and about the things you do?
Yes, of course. Yes, thank you very much also for the invitation to talk to you today. And my name is Helma Oolbekkink. I work at Han University of Applied Sciences in Nijmegen, the Netherlands. And I work there as a professor in teacher professional development or teacher professionalism. And my work is actually a combination of doing both research in teacher education, and that's teacher education for primary, secondary, and vocational education. And also, I am involved in different I'm teaching in the different departments, mostly guest lectures, but I'm also involved in PhD supervision, and also connected to different kinds of policy developments in the department. So it's actually a combination of research, teaching, and policy.
Making, okay. Tell us about your professional trajectory. How did you get to the position that you have today?
Oh, yes, that's a nice question. Well, it actually started just after I had my master's. That was at Leiden University. Leiden is the other part of the Netherlands, and my thesis was on teacher behavior and the relation with moral values of students in classroom. So that thesis got me interested actually in teachers and teacher development and how it influenced students. And just after I graduated, I could continue doing a PhD at the teacher education department of that same university. And that felt like really the job for me. So my PhD was about teacher beliefs in both in secondary and higher education. And it was just really a great time. I learned a lot, was able to meet a lot of researchers involved in teachers' practical knowledge. And it was actually the time of how do you say that? That there was more attention for teacher cognitions, teacher beliefs. So that was a very valuable period. And when I finished my PhD, I went to Radboud University in Nijmegen, and I was offered an assistant professorship there. And I combined research with teaching and teacher education. And I really remember so very well my first lectures and classes. I felt so, how do you say that? So I lacked the experience that they were having in everyday practice. So I was the researcher. And that was I had to learn a lot because I wanted to become that teacher educator. So I had a very good a colleague of mine who reflected with me a lot. He learned me a lot about teaching and being a teacher educator. And at that time, I also collaborated a lot with schools. That was also very helpful for my development. I got involved in practitioner research in schools, collaborating with teachers. So I think that contributed a lot to my professional development. And where I am today, I think what also helped me in my professional trajectory was starting to do work at Valon and at Infotet. That is the International Forum for Teacher Educator Development. And I think that also contributed to having a more broad overview of what it actually is to be a teacher educator, to be involved in research and in the practice in teacher education. So I think that may at least part of my story.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Valon?
Yes, Valon is the professional organization in the Netherlands for teacher educators, and what we want to offer a platform for teacher educators for professional development. So we have a conference, we have a journal for teacher educators, which involves both the research in teacher education, but also good practices in teacher education. That's the one part, the platform part. We offer professional development activities, but also on the other hand, we have what we call the registration trajectory, where teacher educators can reflect on their own professional development and become registered as a teacher educator. So it's actually a quality, something to, in peer dialogue, look at your quality as a teacher educator. So, yeah, that's something about Valon. Yeah.
Can you tell me about your research topics? What are you researching now?
Yes, what I'm researching now. Wow. I think my research has been focusing the last few years on mostly on teacher identity and teacher agency, teacher professional development. And to give an example of what I'm doing at the moment, we're looking at the development of teacher agency in the context of a master program for teachers, for experienced teachers. And we look how their agency sort of develops over the course of the master program and when they sort of re-enter their practice as teachers to see in what way they contribute to innovations in the school. So that is one of the research topics I'm involved with. And also we're looking at beginning professional identity development of student teachers in the first years. So we look at how different the special program we have contributes to their sort of learning to identify as a teacher and what contributes to that. What things in the program contribute to them learning to get to know themselves as a person and as a teacher. And of course, I think that's an interest we share also in teacher educators' professional development. And to give an example of that, with a colleague, I'm involved in interviewing teacher educators who collaborated in an international summer academy to see what are the different things actually they learned from collaborating with teacher educators in different countries. And how that contributed to their practice as a teacher educator, but also to their networks and to their being research active. So these are some topics I'm involved with.
Yeah. And do you see that your research contributes to your work as a teacher and as a teacher educator and as a member of Valon? Or does it work the other way around? Or are they just in the same area, general area, but not actually connected and influencing each other?
Well, I think that's a very nice question. And I can give, I think, an example of what I experienced recently. That for Valon, I described the registration trajectory, and I followed it myself. And every 5 years, you reflect again on your development as a teacher educator. And I just did that like 3 weeks ago. So what I had to do to prepare for that, I had to write a professional autobiography reflecting on my development over the past 5 years. And I was involved in a peer dialogue with colleagues from all over the Netherlands about my professional autobiography. And while I was writing that, I saw so many interesting connections between my teaching, my research, and to give an example, a very specific example, I thought about the Summer Academy for Teacher Educators we organized a few years ago in Trondheim in Norway. And during that Academy, we asked teacher educators to reflect on their what happened there daily by means of a video selfie. So they had to videotape themselves at the end of the day and describe what they learned. And at the end of the week, they had to make a public video selfie. And when I got back from that summer academy, I was involved in developing a master program. And I said, maybe it's nice to use the video selfie here also for our teachers in the program. So we used the video selfie and we sort of developed it. And when I had to work on my professional autobiography, I used the video selfie for my peers personally to describe how I developed over the past 5 years. So this is maybe really a more example where what I saw in professional development, I used it in teacher education, educator practice, and for my own professional development. But while I was working on this professional autobiography, I saw many more lines, also things we discovered in research that were developed into an instrument used in teacher education or used or presented at Valon conferences. So it's actually quite intertwined. Yeah, although it sometimes just takes you a moment to reflect on actually the way these things are intertwined. But I was really sort of happy that to see when I was working on that autobiography how things got together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for your answer. Now, what do you think are the main challenges for teacher education in the Netherlands today?
Oh, for teacher education. Yeah. Well, I think I guess some of them will be similar than in other countries, but I think at the moment we're experiencing two huge pressures, and one is the pressure of teacher shortages, because teacher shortages are increasing, and that puts a pressure on teacher education to educate more teachers, to attract more teachers. So I think that is one really important influence, and that's on the one hand. So there's the shortage, and the other hand there is the quality. So there is a huge a huge pressure also from the government to take more control over schools to be able to guarantee the quality of students. And recent international research results showed that our reading level dropped again, the reading level of our students. And that's a worrying development, of course. So what I see is that these two things both influence teacher education, because on the one hand, I see teacher education programs and institutes looking at ways to make sure that they obtain the quality for teachers, so that they're really looking into their programs. Do we really encourage deep learning about reading skills, about writing, etc.? That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, they feel pressure to take in as many people as possible to make sure that that there are enough teachers. But sometimes these are really opposing forces, because, for example, in the Netherlands, you have to either have you have to follow a pre-university track in secondary education, or a track preparing you for higher education to be able to go to teacher education. But now you see a lot of students from vocational education who want to become teachers, but they do not always have the necessary prerequisites or the knowledge and skills that you need to be successful in a teacher education program. So what you see is teacher educators trying to struggle to help these students to obtain these skills and knowledge. So that takes a lot of time. And at the same time, they have to strive for quality. So that is something that is really influencing teacher education at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And how would you like to see teacher education in the future? What changes do you think should be made?
Oh, that is, yeah. I thought about it, and I think one of the things I think, looking at the context, is I hope that in the future, teacher education and professional development will be a more continuous process. So for now, what I see in my context, you have a teacher education program preparing teachers, and then professional development is something very fragmented. Well, I think that with all the challenges coming to us, to schools, challenges from society about sustainability, for example, or equity and equality, I think looking at a teacher program as a program as such is not enough. So I hope that teacher education in the future will be teacher education and professional development, and that we will be able to think of ways to continue to encourage teacher learning when teachers start in the profession. So I think that is one of the things I hope for the future. I also hope that collaboration between schools and teacher education institutes over boundaries will increase, and especially because I think that pressures on the major issues and challenges we're facing today. So I mentioned equity and equality, sustainability, like things related to polarization. Or that's an issue in our country, like people opposing each other and being really sort of verbally aggressive toward each other. Maybe democratic democracy would be a term that I think all these major topics should be taken into account in teacher education, because I think teachers are such an important, really important advocates. Also, should be for these issues. So I hope we can find ways to take that into account in teacher education more still than we do today.
So now, last but not least, what are you planning to talk about at the conference?
Well, I'm planning to talk about. I'm planning to talk actually about the person of the teacher. I think the person of the teacher and the passion for teaching is so important. And what I see in my context is that control and accountability, and now with the new government policies who are in development now, I think the control will increase, and it pushes teachers in a certain position, namely that they are the ones who should execute what other people have thought of. And I think it's really important to look as teachers as professionals, and teacher educators as professionals. And I think if they want to be agentic in the teacher educators and teacher education, and teachers in their practice, it's really important that they know who they are, what drives them, to be able to to have a voice actually in what's going on in education. And they need ways to keep encouraging that fire. So passion, I think, is really important for agency. I think that I want to talk about the connection between these two.
Okay, so thank you very much. We are very much looking forward to it. And see you in Tel Aviv in 3 weeks.
Yes, see you in Tel Aviv. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Passion and Professionalism, the new series of chapters in TAV CHINUCH, the podcast of the MOFET Institute, which will accompany the 8th Conference on Teachers' Education. Passion is a driving force, an aspiration, a desire to achieve something to reach fulfillment. Usually, passion is temporary and intense, and it shines brightest when we conquer our goals. On the other hand, professionalism is much more consistent. It is the ability to develop expertise through experience, research, and a broad mindset. So how do we combine the both? How do we connect passion with professionalism? And why is it so important to create innovation together with assessment, discovery along with research, educational adventures, as well as continuous evaluation? All of these topics and more will be discussed in the following podcasts. We will host lecturers, researchers, and experienced educators from both Israel and around the world who have exhibited passion and professionalism in research, in practice, and have pushed the boundaries of knowledge and expanded thinking in the fields of education, teacher training, and professional development.